Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive. We take compelling sources, pull out the key insights, the important stuff.
Exactly.
And today, we're heading south, way south, into the Antarctic ice, focusing on Captain Robert Scott's final fateful expedition.
And specifically through the lens of Apsley Cherry-Garrard's book, The Worst Journey in the World, an incredible first-hand account.
Starkly honest is right.
It really is. And what's amazing is how this one book, born from such an ordeal, it gives us this unique view, not just on the science or the sheer brutality of the environment, but the human side. Leadership, loyalty, endurance.
Right, the limits. So our mission today, guide you through it all. The triumphs, the tragedies, the signs, the disasters, give you that shortcut to being really well informed on one of history's truly epic exploration stories.
And there are some surprising things in there, some deep insights.
Definitely. So what does this all mean for us, as learners thinking about resilience, ambition? Let's find out. Okay, so Scott wasn't the first. There were pioneers before him, right, who kind of set the scene for these massive Antarctic journeys.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go back quite a way. Captain Cook, for instance, back in 1772, he was the first to sight an ice island down there, 50 degrees south, noted things like snowy petrels appearing.
Simple observations, but crucial first steps.
Right. He even had his men's jackets lengthened. Small thing, but shows that early adaptation to the cold.
And then James Clark Ross. His name pops up constantly when you read about Scott.
Exactly. Ross is pivotal.
Yeah.
The Admiralty sent him out in 1839, Erebus and Terror. He actually arrived to find French and U.S. ships already sniffing around, but his big discovery,
The Ross Sea.
the Ross Sea, that deep inlet south of New Zealand, it became the gateway, really, the starting place for all the big sledge journeys heading for the pole later on.
So a massive geographical find, though he made a mistake about the mountains.
Yeah, he thought Erebus and Terror, the volcanoes, were connected to the mainland. An understandable error given the scale.
Okay, so Ross opens the door, but then there's this huge gap, right? 60 years before Scott really gets going on land.
An amazing 60 years, yeah. Ross had basically done what ships could do. The next challenge was land, getting to the pole. That required a totally different approach. And that's where Scott comes in. He basically becomes the father of Antarctic sledging.
Okay, let's talk about that journey south, before they even hit the ice, the Terra Nova. What was that ship like? What were the conditions?
Oh, the ship was overloaded, is the word. Hugely overloaded. 425 tons of coal below decks, another 30 tons in sacks on deck.
On the deck, wow.
Yeah, and ponies. Stalls built below for 15, another 4 squeezed onto the forehatch. It just sets the scene for, well, difficult conditions.
And those difficult conditions didn't wait long to arrive, did they? That first big storm sounds terrifying.
It was a real baptism of fire. December 1st, a huge gale hits. Deck cargo starts shifting. Men are out there for hours, throwing coal sacks overboard, trying to relash petrol cases, getting constantly swamped by waves.
Just completely submerged at times.
Yeah, and then the pumps clogged up with coal dust and oil. Water started getting into the engine room, reaching the furnaces, putting the fires out.
Oh, no.
The ship was literally filling up.
That's nightmare fuel. How did Scott handle that level of crisis? What was the leadership like?
Cherry-Garrard described Scott as splendidly calm. Even apparently asked someone, "I'm afraid it's a bad business for us. What do you think?"
Yeah.
Almost understated.
Interesting. And the motor sledges, they were damaged too. Those are supposed to be key.
They were. Crucial, really. But they got damaged, and Scott just declared they did not matter.
Calmness, or maybe downplaying a serious setback.
Possibly a bit of both. Hard to say. But it certainly showed composure.
And the crew itself, the dynamic, it sounds like it wasn't your standard naval ship.
Not at all. You had Navy officers, yes. But a lot of the hard labor was done by volunteers. Everyone mucked in. Scientists, officers like Lieutenant Evans, everyone was hauling coal, even when they were sick to death of it.
A real team effort, then. And some interesting characters, like Wilson.
Oh, Wilson sounds incredible. Chief scientist, but also the doctor, an artist, a confidant, just multifaceted. Then you had Campbell, the first officer, very efficient, by the book. Cherry-Garrard admits being very frightened of Campbell, so, different styles.
I can picture it. And they had these shipboard traditions, too, like crossing the equator.
Oh, yes, the crossing the line ceremony. Sounds quite chaotic. The newcomers, like Nelson the biologist, they got the full treatment from Neptune and his bears.
Shaving with soot and flour.
Apparently. Soot, flour, water paste for shaving, then dunked in a bath where crewmates dressed as bears were waiting.
Sounds like memorable team building.
Definitely memorable. A bit rough, maybe, but a bonding experience for sure.
And amidst all this, the science work continued, even on the voyage.
Constantly. Always observing. Dolphins. Whales sighted frequently. Pennell especially kept this meticulous hourly log of species. An untiring and exact observer, Cherry-Garrard called him.
Amazing. Even identified specific whales.
Yeah, a northern rorqual apparently followed them for a bit. And Wilson had his own theories, like albatrosses circling the globe, only landing once a year.
Fascinating. Shows that dual focus, exploration, and science right from the start.
Absolutely.
So they survived the voyage, finally reached the Antarctic. How did the landing go? Setting up base camp.
Surprisingly smooth, actually, especially after that storm. The motor sledges, despite the earlier damage, apparently looked fresh and clean coming out. And Oates, the army captain in charge of the ponies, he did an amazing job. Got all 17 ashore safely onto the ice floe.
And the ponies were happy.
Apparently. Rolled and kicked with joy, Cherry-Garrard says. Getting off that cramped ship must have felt incredible. And the whole landing, unloading all the essential gear, took just 6 days, which is apparently record speed for that kind of expedition.
Impressive efficiency. And the hut itself. Hut Point, that became home, didn't it?
It absolutely did. The heart of the operation.
Yeah.
Meticulously built, lots of insulation layers, got very warm inside, even fuggy, with 25 men, the cooker, the stove all going, designed to retain every bit of heat. A vital refuge.
A refuge, yes. But what about when they ventured out, those early sledging trips? Were they really ready for the reality of the ice?
Honestly, not really. Cherry-Garrard is pretty blunt. Says it was amazing that the results were not more disastrous.
What went wrong?
Basic stuff. Dog teams just wouldn't pull sometimes. They found the pemmican that concentrated food too rich. You had officers casually talking about climbing Mount Erebus and back in a day, which was just not feasible.
So a serious underestimation.
Yeah, the equipment, the routines, none of it was really tested for those specific brutal conditions. A very steep learning curve. And then there was the wind. The Hut Point wind became this notorious local feature they just had to deal with. Trial and error, really.
Okay, so winter arrives. Months of total darkness. What was life actually like inside that hut? How did they cope?
Well, the weather outside, when it wasn't windy, could be incredibly clear. Moonlight, reflecting off the ice, seeing landmarks 90 miles away. Auroras were common. But the sun was gone for 4 solid months. Exercise was vital. Just getting out, walking or skiing, even alone, for mental health as much as physical.
And inside, it wasn't just about surviving, right? They kept their minds active. Lectures.
Oh, yeah, the lectures were crucial. Kept people intellectually stimulated. Bowers lectured on sledge foods and clothing, proposed windproofs over furs, quite forward-thinking. Simpson on meteorology, Nelson on biology, Taylor on geology.
And Scott was involved in these.
Very much so. Deeply interested in all the science, even if he wasn't a specialist himself. Cherry-Garrard says he had this uncanny knack of hitting upon a solution.
Fascinating. Now, scurvy, that old dread of polar explorers, what did they understand about it? What were they doing?
It was a huge concern. Atkinson, the doctor, had his theory an acid intoxication of the blood caused by bacteria. They did monthly litmus paper tests.
Acid intoxication.
Yeah. He insisted only fresh vegetables can truly prevent it, that fresh meat wasn't enough in the extreme cold. But Wilson strongly disagreed. He was convinced fresh seal meat was the cure, based on the Discovery expedition.
So conflicting medical opinions even within the team.
Absolutely. Wilson apparently knew he had scurvy before the obvious signs appeared, like discolored gums. He also suspected the dogs had ptomaine poisoning from bad fish. Lots of unknowns.
This focus on science, even self-observation, it leads us to that insane winter journey, doesn't it, for the emperor penguin eggs? Why on earth did they do that?
Sounds mad, doesn't it? But it was purely for science. Wilson, Bowers, and Cherry-Garrard went. The goal was emperor penguin embryos. They thought emperors were the most primitive bird form, key to understanding evolution.
But the conditions. Midwinter, total darkness.
Horrific. Near total darkness, temperatures down to -69 Fahrenheit, -75 on the sledge thermometer. Huge ice pressure ridges to cross. Just unimaginable hardship.
107 degrees of frost. That phrase just sticks. How did they physically and mentally endure that?
Constant shivering, severe frostbite was a daily reality. Their clothes froze solid like boards. Took 2 men to wrestle 1 man into his sledging harness.
Frozen sweat inside the layers.
Exactly. Mentally, they developed mantras, just simple phrases to repeat. You've got it in the neck, stick it, anything to keep going.
And daydreaming.
Crucial. Daydreaming about food, bizarrely. Tinned peaches was a favorite fantasy. And Wilson, as doctor, had these agonizing decisions of when to camp for frostbite, knowing a mistake could kill them all.
That pressure. And then the tent incident in the middle of a blizzard.
Incredible story. They'd built a small snoot igloo for shelter during a terrible blizzard. Their tent, pitched nearby, got ripped away by the wind. Gone.
Oh my God. In that cold, in darkness.
Devastating. But miraculously, they found it later, half a mile away. It had landed, now folded up. And the sheer weight of frozen snow on it had stopped it blowing further or tearing apart.
Unbelievable luck.
Almost supernatural luck. They retrieved it, battered but usable, and cooked this meal Cherry-Garrard describes as the weirdest meal pemmican, full of tent debris, hairs, dirt.
But delicious.
But delicious. Because they were alive. That journey really earned its name. The worst journey in the world, especially if the science justified it.
Okay, turning to the main goal. The South Pole itself, what was Scott's plan to actually get there? The transport strategy.
It was ambitious, maybe overly complex, a mixed system. Motor sledges first, then dogs, then ponies, and finally man-hauling for the last push.
Motor sledges were a big hope, weren't they?
Huge hope. Scott thought they'd revolutionize polar transport, but the engines just couldn't handle the intense cold. Cylinders cracked, a major early failure in the plan.
So back to the animals. Oates and the pony sounds like he poured his heart into them.
He really did. An incredible horseman. Trained them, fed them well, oil cake, oats, proper care. And some of those ponies were heroic. Jehu, who started as a wreck, pulled for hundreds of miles. Christopher, a difficult one, still did his part.
But it was brutal for them, too.
Immensely brutal, and a source of constant strain and ultimately grief. Some, like Michael, were shot for food, a grim necessity, but terrible.
And the dogs had issues, too.
Yeah, disease hit them hard.
Yeah.
A type of parasitic heartworm killed quite a few. It highlights the difference with Amundsen. He relied heavily on dogs, managed them differently, letting them run loose in camp.
Which Scott couldn't do.
Not really. The wind conditions at Cape Evans were apparently too severe for that. Different environments, different constraints.
So the final push, Scott selects his team. How did that actually play out?
Scott, Wilson, Bowers, Oates, and Seaman Evans. 5 men. Scott actually added Bowers quite late in the process.
Why add another man?
Maybe, as Cherry-Garrard suggests, to ensure the Army, Oates and Bowers, was represented alongside the Navy, but it caused a huge problem. Skis. They only had 4 pairs of skis for 5 men. Bowers, who was short-legged anyway, had to trudge through the snow without skis. Utterly exhausting. A small detail with massive consequences.
And then they arrive. The pole. But Amundsen had been there first. The flag. What did that do to them?
Finding that Norwegian flag. January 17th, 1912, 34 days after Amundsen. It must have been utterly soul-crushing.
Scott acknowledged it in his diary.
He did. Wrote about Amundsen's prior right and admitted he'd beaten us because he'd made it a race.
Yeah.
Imagine the deflation. Years of effort, sacrifice for second place. The psychological blow must have been immense.
And that blow surely colored the return journey, which became so tragic. What went wrong on the way back?
Besides the disappointment.
It was a combination, a cascade of problems. The surface conditions turned dreadful, like pulling sledges through sand, Cherry-Garrard wrote. No glide on the skis at all.
Just energy-sapping work. Exactly. And the cold. Even when the thermometer wasn't at record lows, they felt it intensely. Exhaustion, maybe that damp quality in the air they mentioned, it just cut through them. Then the physical breakdown started. Evans, the big, strong petty officer, went first. Huge blister, likely scurvy, weakened by inadequate food for the immense effort.
And Oates.
Oates started failing too. His old war wound, the frostbite. He was slowing them down. And a critical factor, fuel shortage. Oil for the stove. Scott repeatedly noted low levels in the depots.
Why? What happened to the fuel?
The main theory is the leather washers and the stoppers of the fuel tins perished in the cold, allowing evaporation. It's a problem Scott actually knew about from his earlier discovery expedition.
But it wasn't fixed.
Apparently not fully resolved. Plus, some tins just got lost after landing, buried in snow, found months too late. A series of small logistical failures compounding into disaster.
Which led to those final awful days. Trapped in the tent.
Yeah. March turned horrendous. Non-stop blizzard, temperatures dropping way below zero, minus 30s, minus 40s.
Yeah.
They were just 11 miles from One Ton Depot, a major supply cache. But they ran out of fuel. Couldn't cook their last meal. Only had food for 2 days left.
11 miles. So close.
Heartbreakingly close. Scott's last diary entry, March 29th. It's about courage, endurance, worrying about their families. Before that, Oates walking out into the blizzard. I'm just going outside and maybe some time. Incredible sacrifice.
Trying to give the others a chance.
Exactly. Evans had died earlier, back at the Beardmore Glacier. Scott, Wilson, and Bowers died together in that tent. A convergence of bad luck, planning flaws, and just unspeakable conditions.
Such a brutal end. Looking back, how did Cherry-Garrard, as a survivor and the chronicler, frame the whole expedition? The motivations, the later criticism?
He tackles the critics head on. The practical man, asking why they didn't just take more dogs like Amundsen, or why they hauled 30 pounds of rocks back.
Right, the geological samples.
Yeah. Cherry-Garrard passionately defends that. Those rocks were crucial, he argued, for dating the continent, understanding its ancient history, finding plant fossils. He insists the real problem wasn't the weight itself, but the friction of the snow surface. And crucially, he says, they weren't just racing. Amundsen was focused purely on the pole. Scott's team, he argues, was there for everything we could add to the world's store of knowledge.
A broader scientific mission, not just a single goal.
Exactly. That's his perspective. It complicates the simple narrative of winning and losing.
Did he point to any bigger sort of organizational flaws in how these expeditions were run back then?
He did, yeah. He talked about the reliance on volunteers, how the most willing people got overworked, the willing horses.
Yeah.
And he made a pretty strong case, looking back, that this kind of major scientific exploration shouldn't rely on individuals begging rich people for money.
He argued for state funding, public organization.
Essentially, yes. Proper endowment and organization rather than gauging for checks. It's quite a modern thought, really, but the infrastructure needed for big science.
And the human cost.
Yeah.
He felt it personally, didn't he? Even as a survivor.
Deeply. He talks about his own health being permanently damaged, an overdraft on vital capital he'd never repay, and then the 5 deaths. He reflects on that unique polar psychology, total isolation, no chance of rescue for a year. His comment about breaking a leg on the Beardmore Glacier, meaning you'd have to figure out how to commit suicide.
It's chilling. It shows the absolute stakes.
The invisible costs, the trauma.
Right, absolutely.
Yet through all the suffering, the book is also full of, well, positive human qualities, isn't it?
Definitely. Cherry-Garrard emphasizes the courage and strength and loyalty and love amongst the men. It's not just a story of disaster. And that quote they put on the memorial cross from Tennyson's Ulysses, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield, it captures that spirit, doesn't it?
It really does. So we've done this deep dive into the worst journey, into Scott's expedition. It's about science, endurance, tragedy, but also about that drive to know, even facing the absolute worst. Yeah, it shows exploration isn't simple. It's this complex mix of grand plans, tiny overlooked details, leadership strengths, human weaknesses, and just sheer unpredictable chance. The Antarctic certainly taught them some brutal lessons.
About adapting, being resilient, the need for foresight.
Yeah, and maybe about the limits of foresight, too.
And here's where it gets really interesting for us, I think. This wasn't just about discovering Antarctica, was it? It was about what the experience revealed inside the people involved. So for you, listening, think about your own world. Where do you face that tension between big goals and real-world limits, between ambition and risk? Are there lessons here maybe in how they face setbacks or assessed risks that resonate?
It does raise that profound question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When does pushing for knowledge tip over into extreme self-sacrifice? And how do we make sure we actually learn from these stories? Learn about managing risk, about the human factor, not just remember them as tales of doomed heroism.
Lots to think about there. We hope this deep dive has given you some new perspectives on this incredible and tragic story. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning.